The trailer for Ridley Scott's much anticipated Gladiator 2 features all the scenes you'd expect. Though it's centred mainly around the epic gladiatorial battles fought within the curved walls of Rome's Colosseum, there's one clash in particular that stands out from the scene. Towards the end of the trailer, we see the Colosseum filled with water as two naval vessels swap blows with one another. So, was Ridley Scott allowing himself some artistic license with this scene, or was it based on reality? Could the Colosseum really house epic naval battles? To start our story, we've got to travel back to the 1st century BC, over 100 years before the Colosseum was even built. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar wanted to celebrate the victorious campaigns in Gaul and Egypt. The emperor arranged music, horse racing, cavalry combat, elephant battles, and the first Nomachia, otherwise known as mock naval battle. For Caesar's Nomachia, ships representing the Tyrian and Egyptian fleets were set afloat in a basin constructed near the river Tiber. The artificial lake was around 1,800 feet long and 1,200 feet wide, providing ample room for massive mock battles, while the lake was surrounded by marble seating to accommodate Rome's wealthy spectators. When battle commenced, the boats were staffed with 4,000 oarsmen and 2,000 fighting men. It's unclear how much of the ensuing face-off was pre-orchestrated, how much was theatrical, and how much was simply visceral chaos. But whatever the case, the scale and novelty of the spectacle drew thousands of spectators who crowded and even camped along the streets to catch a glimpse. The frenzied crowd was so chaotic, many were crushed on their way to the spectacle. Then, in 80 AD, under the reign of Flavius Titus, the symbol of Rome's power and wealth became cemented in the form of the Colosseum. As a celebration for the complete construction of Rome's gem, Titus inaugurated the opening of the arena with lavish games that would last for more than 100 days. There were parades, musical performances, public executions, gladiatorial combat, and of course, the Nomachia. Cassius Dio, commentating a century later, wrote, "For Titus suddenly filled this theatre with water and brought in horses and bulls and some other domesticated animals that had been taught to behave in the liquid element, just as on land. He also brought in people on ships who engaged in a sea fight there, impersonating the Corinthians and Corinthians." The question is, how did engineers manage to flood the Colosseum to create this aquatic effect? Some historians believe a giant aqueduct was diverted into the arena. Granted, their aqueduct system brought in sufficient volumes of water for it to be feasible. The Claudian aqueduct alone could discharge 1,600 litres per second. Assuming that the circumference of the Colosseum's arena measured 260 by 150 feet, civil engineer academic Martin Krapper has calculated that the arena of the Colosseum could have been filled in between 2 and 5 hours. Nevertheless, others think the system of chambers and sluice gates used to drain the arena were also used to fill it. These chambers could have been filled with water prior to the event and then opened to submerge the stage under a depth of 5 feet. Regardless of how the water arrived at the Colosseum stage, its fairly shallow depth meant the Romans had to construct miniature boats with special flat bottoms that wouldn't scrape the Colosseum floor. These boats ranged from 23 to 50 feet long and were built to look like vessels from famous encounters. During a battle, dozens of these ships would float around the arena, crewed by gladiators dressed as the opposing sides of the recreated battles. These warriors would trawl across ships, boarding them, fighting, drowning, and incapacitating their foes until only one faction was left standing. But the Colosseum's aquatic age didn't last forever. The naval battles proved so popular they were given their own nearby lake by Emperor Domitian in the early 90s AD. The larger lake proved even better for Naumachia, and the Colosseum soon gained a series of underground animal cages and trapdoors, meaning no more Naumachia could take place here. While those watching the trailer for Gladiator 2 may have presumed Ridley Scott was being fanciful, the accurate nature of his depictions of naval battles in flooded Colosseums goes to show how Roman ingenuity and craftsmanship turned the unbelievable into reality.